Welcome to Aufhören der Podcast. My name is Sophia and I am super happy that you listen to your and mine feminist spiritual business empowerment podcast. When you are looking for the courage to quit and the inspiration to start, this is for you. In this week's episode, I have a guest. Nina Kim is in the show. Nina Kim arrived here in Berlin 3 years ago, straight from San Francisco. And she offers Psychedelic Reiki Massage. She believes that in the altered states of consciousness, deepest and most complete healing can happen. And it's so beautiful. I got a massage from her. I gifted people I really love a massage from her. So, of course, I believe she's a really, really great healer. We talk about how she got into Reiki, what Reiki is. At the moment, she's also working in clubs in Berlin. So I ask her, of course, how it is to work in Berlin Techno clubs and how it is to bring healing into these really dark spaces. Of course, we talk about drugs and we talk about the use and abuse of substances. She shares her experiences. I share some of my experiences. We talk about San Francisco and Berlin and how it is to work in a job that's not the regular job. And yeah, we talk about many more things and in a bit, you can listen to that yourself. And when you do that, I wish you a lot of fun. I wish you great insight. And I hope that now you smile. Hello, Nina Kim.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. I'm really, really glad to have you as a guest because I think what you do is an important thing of something bigger that's happening in our world. And we met at the Agape Soul festival and I got a massage from you and I gifted my boyfriend a massage. And what also like a month ago, the last time at the Agape Soul festival, what really impressed me was how you introduced yourself. I love this sentence. It's so bad. So I wanted to ask you if you can introduce yourself with that nice sentence about what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. My name is Nina Kim, and I'm a Reiki master and 500-hour certified massage therapist from San Francisco, California. I've been living in Berlin for about 3 years, and I lived in San Francisco for 8. That's where I did all my Reiki and massage training, or that's where I began my Reiki and massage training about 8 years ago. Do you want me to do like the full version, or just kind of like a...
Yeah.
The full version. Okay, so what is a psychedelic Reiki massage? It's a Reiki infused massage which can bring you to an altered state of consciousness. And as you may know, Reiki is a simple yet profound mode of energy healing that promotes deep relaxation, awareness, and restoration of the body, mind, and spirit, and can also lead to greater clarity and insight. And I consider this psychedelic also because I consider my style very influenced by psychedelics. And last summer I was out at Boom Festival helping to build for 2 months in Portugal. That's one of the largest psychedelic gatherings in the world, and I also helped to organize Altered conference exploring psychedelics and altered states of consciousness. That was in 2017 in Berlin. And it is in the altered states of consciousness, I believe, that some of the most deepest and complete healing can happen. And so I like to combine the two, the Reiki and the massage, for a more holistic approach to the body because it addresses both the physical realms and the energetic realms. And lastly, I first got into Reiki because in 2011 I was in a really terrible bicycle accident where I landed on my face, knocked out my teeth, and it was by working with a Reiki master and also learning Reiki myself. It really just helped to save my life, and with this inspiration I want to spread the gift of Reiki with the rest of the world. So.
That's So nice.
Thank you.
And actually, we're done.
Podcast over.
No, super nice. Yeah, and it's also nice that we have it recorded because people can go back and listen to it again and again because it's so much, like, you've said it all. But now I'm gonna poke.
Okay, sure.
So I'm interested, first things first, your accident, what you had. Can you describe a bit more how it was for you, how Reiki helped you?
It was a complicated process because when I knocked out my teeth, it took me at least 2 years to put my teeth back in, and I had to undergo procedures like gum surgery, jaw surgery. I had to wear this retainer with teeth on it for 2 years, and so I couldn't taste my food. I gained 13 kilos. I was just a big mess, and I would wake up every day wondering why I was still alive. Like, I just really wanted to have died in that accident. And Reiki just really helped me because as I was going to the Western doctors, they were putting me through all the scans, and they were like, oh, you didn't break your spine, everything is okay. And I'm like, everything's not okay, like I don't feel okay. And so just from a very macro Western medicine perspective, everything was okay because I didn't die or I didn't break my spine. But just things were happening where I couldn't sleep at night because I was having really terrible dreams. And there's this bone called your sphenoid that sits behind your eyeballs, and it's shaped like a butterfly, and it like very slowly moves like a butterfly, but upon impact it got stuck. And so whenever I closed my eyes, there'd just be these white flashing lights, hence another reason I couldn't sleep. And so with Reiki and also a bit of craniosacral therapy, we were able to kind of unlock the impact and just really get the energy moving again, because and you don't just experience all this impact and then it just goes away, like the energy's stuck somewhere in my body. And so Reiki just really helped me to address the subtleties of what was going on that the doctors couldn't understand or point out. And also the beautiful thing about Reiki is that you can Reiki other things in your body. So I was Reikiing like my hospital bills and my insurance papers, and back in the States it's a big mess with health insurance companies. And so I was in this situation where I had to pay $17,000 out of pocket and then hopefully get it all reimbursed. And I remember my doctors telling me, just not giving me invoices, like, you're never going to get your money back. Like, I've never seen people get money back for braces or things like that. And but I just really used Reiki to be like, please, help me, help just this energy flow, and I was able to get, it took me 2 years, but I was able to get every last dollar reimbursed, which was just like a big miracle. And I don't think I would have been able to do it without Reiki to just help heal myself and also just help the bureaucratic mess that I was in. So
amazing.
Thank you.
And do you remember your first Reiki session? Like, where have you known Reiki before, or did your mom say, let's go to Reiki, child? Or how did you land in your first Reiki session, and what was the feeling after?
Yeah, so my first Reiki session was actually just learning Reiki myself, and it was at a time, it was in 2011, so it was even before my accident, and I like to see it as the universe was so kind in knowing that I would go through this accident, and that it sent me the gift of Reiki before. But it was at a time where things like Groupon or Living Social were very popular, and I remember seeing this offer of like, oh, Reiki 1 workshop, and I was like, just a curious hippie in San Francisco, and being like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And it was this beautiful weekend program, and I met my Reiki master, Bronwyn, and we just learned Reiki, and I just remember experiencing it, because since it's a 2-day workshop, at first we would learn all the symbols and work with it without being attuned to the energy, and then at the end of the first day we were attuned to the energy, and then the second day I remember just feeling like such a difference in the quality of the energy and just my sensitivity to it as well. And so I remember, I think my mantra was just like, Reiki Reiki is real. Like, I was like, wow, Reiki, it's so simple, but it's so real. And I was just so moved by it. That I just really felt a huge calling to keep moving up the levels, like Reiki 2, 3, and Master. But especially after my accident, I really just got this hit of intuition, like this is really helpful thing for me, and I need to, I want to, and I need to just keep learning it more. So yeah, that was kind of my first experience, and it was really just like a general curiosity that brought me there.
Nice.
Thank you.
So, can you explain, maybe just in case someone is listening and does not know what Reiki is, like, what do you do when you give Reiki session?
Yeah, so Reiki comes from a Japanese word, and ki is kind of like your chi or your prana. It's your individual life force energy, whereas Rei is kind of the more universal, all-encompassing aspect of energy. So Reiki is like this universal energy and your individual energy. So Reiki flows through and around us through our auras and our chakras. So actually anyone can practice Reiki, and for you to be attuned to Reiki 1, 2, 3 or Master is just more like tuning the strings of a guitar. You kind of clear the energetic pathways a bit more through the initiation. But basically what I do is I say the Reiki prayer, and I set some boundaries, and I just say, like, may this Reiki be used for the highest good, the harm of none, and the benefit for all. May the healing that takes place be complete and permanent on all levels of being. If anyone or part does not wish to receive this Reiki, may it be sent unto the earth. And then I say a boundary prayer that says, I arrive here today to serve as a healing light conduit for Sophia. What's mine is mine, what's hers is hers. I do not take on any karmic, energetic, physical, emotional, or psychological conditions. And then I ask Reiki to flow through me 3 times, and I do a hand symbol and invoke the help of my helpers. May it be my ancestors, my ascended masters, animal totems, anybody, Lakshmi, Kuan Yin, anybody who wants to help me, and then to help guide my hands where Reiki is needed most, and then you start the Reiki. But I guess before you say the prayer, we start with the Gassho meditation, which is your hands coming together, and it's kind of like you don't push into your hands and you don't pull. You kind of find this like perfect equilibrium of your hands, and you focus on pericardium 9, which is just this point in the top of your middle finger. And I don't know, I like to visualize just like a ball of light growing in my hand, and then so after this meditation, then I say these prayers in the boundary, and then ask for the help, and then start the treatment.
And during the treatment, because before I knew about it, it's not you don't touch people, no?
It's a matter of preference. You can touch or not touch. I like to touch because I think the healing touch is just a really nice feeling. But if people are come in with trauma, or like people have burns, you don't want to touch that. So, or also like your root chakra, like I'm not going to touch down there, but I just kind of hover my hand. But anywhere else, I feel called to, I generally touch.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions I have for you is, people come to you to get this treatment, to get massage, and so I think you help people getting holistically more healthy. So from your experience, from your perspective, do you have like one advice, what you often see, one small thing that many people could change in their life that would have a big effort on their all over health? Like, what do you see that could easily be changed?
What could easily be changed? I would say that it's kind of like what we were talking before we started, but I find that oftentimes people are their own worst critic, and they're really hard on themselves, and your body doesn't lie. Like, it sends very clear signals if it's feeling something, but oftentimes our analytical mind tries to quiet it because this feeling can be inconvenient or too extreme or socially unacceptable, or you don't have time to deal with that right now. And then people come in and they're like throat chakras like exploding, or like their heart feels so blocked in like what they're desiring, and so I would say like a really good practice is to just treat yourself with the compassion that you would treat like a child, and just really be aware of the monologue that you have, or the dialogue even that you have in your mind, of just like think of like how you speak to yourself or how you treat yourself, and really just allow yourself to be a bit more playful or a little less rigid or a little less harsh, because I feel like that's kind of when things start to get blocked and things start to feel a bit out of the flow, is that when you deny and when you resist. But it's like with energy, whatever you resist persists, and so sometimes you just have to allow for whatever to arise, and not be so analytical and like what that could mean or why is this happening, just be and let be, and I feel like every cell in your body could just be a lot more at peace with that when you're able to do that. But of course a lot easier said than done, but that's why like when people come in and they have things arising in their body, after the session I like to talk about kind of what I felt, or different ways to support these things that are coming up. And so like how do you do that? Like easier said than done, but they're just self-love practices. You can do mantras, you can do like a gratitude journal every day, just kind of to get yourself out of this like harsh critical pattern that we can fall into. I think that I think life could be a bit more effortless in that way if you're able to kind of deprogram yourself out of that. So yeah, that's kind of a long answer.
Nice. Yeah, I think it also shows that actually physical and mental health are so connected, and I think we are so aware of our physical health that we need to eat healthy, supplement, smoothie, work out. But then we have the worst thoughts about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they're so interconnected.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So, because I think you are so wise.
Thank you.
The next
questionable.
Is,
no, just kidding.
The next question is very selfish for me to help myself. So, how is it for you to have such an unconventional job? And also talking about negative self-talk, what we just talked about earlier, do you have any advice, any practice you do when you have your inner critic telling you that you should have a proper job, sitting in an office, whatever? How do you do it? Do you still have these critical thoughts, and how do you handle these self-doubt towards your career? Yeah, how do you feel about it?
I would say that I'm actually at a point where I wanted this so bad for myself that I'm really happy to be in the space that I'm in. And so, I mean, my parents were immigrants from Korea, and basically since I was legal to work in the 7th grade, I've been working since in an office since 2016 or so, since I moved to Berlin. So moving to Berlin was very much an intentional step in my life of just, okay, I'm very grateful for this experience. I've learned a lot. I've worked amongst brilliant people, but this isn't really feeding me the way that I would like to. And so moving to Berlin was kind of disconnecting from this very corporate life. And actually moving here, every time I studied Reiki or massage, I was never I will be a massage therapist. It was just something that I really was inspired by and wanted to know more about, because I thought it was so interesting and amazing. And so I don't know, I guess I really just followed my heart on that one, because when I moved here, thankfully I was in a place that I didn't have to work right away, and I really just was able to give myself the space of like, okay, what is it that I want to do? What moves me? What fills my heart with joy? And I came across like, oh yeah, I went to massage and Reiki. I studied massage and Reiki. Like, why not try to do this now? And so for me, to answer your question, like I don't have this critical, like, why are you doing this, or what are you even doing? Because I've lived this past life of like doing the whole, working in an office thing, and decided that that wasn't for me. And so, I'm really grateful to be able to do what I love. But yeah, I would say that, like, maybe there were some doubt. There were definitely, not maybe, there were definitely doubts in trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do when I first got here. And definitely massage and Reiki wasn't the first and only thing. I was like, oh, maybe I really like music. Let's work for like a music agency. Really not for me. And just trying different things here and there. But I feel like with massage and Reiki, it just really clicked. And that was, a lot of it was just like the feedback that I was getting from the people that I was working with, and how it was helping them, and then me being able to feel really fulfilled in the space. Sometimes my mind goes into the responsible adult, like, oh, but what about 10 years from now, Nina? And then I just try to like bring it back into the moment of just like, it feels really good in this moment. And, 10 years from now, if I can't do this anymore for whatever reason, I have other gifts and talents I can explore as well too. And I think as long as you think of life as so not linearly, and just more of an exploration, and really just tapping into things that feel good and fulfilling, that I feel like life can only I feel like that's when you're kind of just in the flow, is that like things start to manifest, if the intention is there, if they're meant to manifest. And if they don't manifest, to not be attached to the results and just move on, and this mode of thinking I found a lot just through my mindfulness meditation practice, is to just this non-attachment, especially to, when people think non-attachment, they think to like things or places, but especially to outcomes or expectations, and the more you can just live without expectations, the more you can live in the joy of, the surprises, the beautiful surprises that the universe has to offer you. And I don't know, after surviving my accident and going through a really hard 2-year process, like I'm absolutely convinced that the universe is working for your highest good, even though in the present moment it may not be super apparent. And so it's just really like trusting and believing and living with a good intention. And like begets like, that's just the nature of energy. So the more good things you could put out into the universe, I feel like it comes back to you, sometimes 3 or 4-fold. So yeah.
That's so nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what I can feel about you is also that you are so grateful and fulfilled about your present, about what you do right now, that this is taking up most of your mental space. So you cannot think about what if or the past or the future, but just being here and loving what you do now is maybe the biggest secret, no?
Thank you. Yeah, it's really, I call it just attitude of gratitude, and it's a very, like, mortality is such a humbling thing, the moment I could have died and then I didn't, then you start to be grateful for the craziest things that you wouldn't even think to be grateful for. Like, wow, I once had teeth. Like, shouldn't I have been grateful that I could chew my own food? Wow, I have legs that can walk. Just simplest things that you take for granted, you learn to be grateful for, because in that split second, you're like, well, damn, that could have just all went away. I could have just not have been here, you know? And so that really helped to strengthen my level of gratitude for things, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've also experienced that. I had no near-death situation, but people around me dying, or people I know who died.
Yeah.
And it's always like very sad and full of grief and a dark time.
Yeah.
But also every time I experience this, I realized that I have no time to do things I don't want.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
It helps to just cut the bullshit and do what you like, to be aware that.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that feels so nice. So let's talk about. I've checked. I follow you on Facebook.
Thank you.
I always look what you do and where you work. And right now, I saw that you are also working in clubs in Berlin.
Yeah.
You mentioned you also like music, and so in this. I have a lot of questions. So,
most people do.
I mean, the clubbing scene here in Berlin is, I'm just going to say it as it is. I've been out many times. I live in Berlin since 2012. So people here do a lot of drugs. It's not so much that, it's rare that someone is sober partying. How is it for you to work here with so many high people?
Yeah, well, first things first, I will say that I'm totally sober during when I'm giving the massage, and that's very important to me. So then how do I stay up all night? I sleep all day the day before, just eat really good food, do lots of yoga, really just take care of myself, and then I also don't plan anything the next day. And I had one person approach me at a party, and he was like, how do you do massage in here? Isn't the energy so dark? And it's like, sure, yeah, the energy can be dark at a club where people are doing drugs and, various other things. But that doesn't mean, that more like light healing energy can't exist alongside it. And if anything, you could even argue dark is light and light is dark if you see it that way. But also because since the energy can be so quote unquote dark, like there definitely has to be some sort of healing presence, because the energies of a party can get so crazy. So for me, I once had my chart read, and the woman told me that Vesta, she's Vesta or Hesperia, she's the goddess of the keeper of the sacred fire. And she said that's really strong in my chart. And every time I do this, I kind of feel like the goddess of the sacred fire just kind of like holding the space in this crazy energy. Because for me, that's really important, to give people the option to give something other, or to do something other than take drugs or party or dance. And if you're dancing all night, your body is tired, you probably do need a massage. And actually for me, it's also a mode of psychedelic harm reduction, in that, okay, people are high, people are in many different states. I've had many people come to me just for a conversation. They wouldn't even want a massage, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just having a hard time. Can I just talk to you? And I'm like, yes, of course. And then we talk, and afterwards they're like, wow, like I just feel so like present and so much more grounded. Thank you. And for me, that's such important work. If people are having a hard time, there needs to be some sort of resource for them to be able to get back into themselves. And with the massage too, like massage is very grounding, it's very physical. And I've had someone tell me like, yeah, I just came into the party by myself and was feeling really lost, but after your massage I just feel so much more present, and that I can connect to the people. And so like people not only experience that, but are inspired so much to like tell me that, and for me, that's just really fulfilling to hear and to experience. And then comes the question like, okay, do I massage people while they're high? Isn't everybody high? And I think I mean, I wouldn't just massage anybody. Like I definitely have the right to say no in any moment, but I've had many explorations as well, and I could say whatever state you're in, I've probably been there. And so for me, to have been there and to understand what you may be experiencing is also very important for me to like tailor the massage. Like, okay, do we have you face down, face up? Do I hover my hands? Do I touch you? So I always just check in with the people, like where they're at, and based on having a conversation with them, I can generally kind of understand what they may have ingested, and so for me, like, it's important to talk first things first, and if someone can't even hold a conversation, then I say, okay, maybe this isn't the best time. But if people seem pretty much all there and maybe a little high, like, and I can understand like where they're at, like, that's okay. Like, I don't deny people that. And then because I say these boundary prayers, like, I don't feel like I'm taking on this energy, or and so for me it's really just an important service that to have this space at a party, just in case people need help.
It really makes sense. I think actually it should also be clubs should, like, I think all the clubs in Berlin contact you to be there. No, but yeah, and that maybe also fits with my next question a bit. So for you, is there a difference between getting high just for the sake of being up all night, or intentionally ingesting something, taking a substance for this altered state of consciousness with the intention of healing? Is there a difference in the outcome, or like a substance, when you have this altered state, it happens to you if you want or not, or does your intention change it? My question is, when someone takes LSD because they want to heal a certain wound, is it the same than when someone goes to a club for 3 days and just gets really high with many different drugs? Is there a good or a bad way to use psychedelics? Is there a right and a wrong way? Is there a way that works better and a way that could even be harmful?
Well, I would definitely use more of the language that there are more fruitful ways and not fruitful ways, because I don't want to judge an experience as being like negative or positive, good or bad. And to answer that question, I would say there are definitely more fruitful ways to use substances, in that there's a difference between use and abuse. And I think with anything in life, the more intentionality behind it, the more you can manifest whatever your intention is, because energy flows where attention goes. And so, but then you can also have an experience like, oh, I'm just at a party, I don't know, and I ate this LSD, and like, whoa, I just, ride the fabric of the universe. And like, yeah, it can come to you without intention as well. But yeah, I think intentionality is so important, because it's really just, what are you trying to get out of the experience? Like, are you just trying to stay up for 72 hours and destroy your body and just like take abuse? Or are you trying to, connect more with your surroundings, connect more with yourself, like open your heart chakra or whatever that may be, and to flow the energy through there as well. And so it's funny because, contrary to popular belief, I don't take that many drugs anymore. Like, I definitely lived in San Francisco for 8 years. I've definitely tried all the things and did a lot of things and whatnot. But it's, for me, drugs have just become kind of like definitely more like an intentional experience, and definitely more of a cherry on top. And oftentimes I am at a party, not massaging, and like totally sober and having a great time. But if I felt called to in the moment and just wanted to have like a little of that, then I would do it with intention, and I would do it knowing that I can have a perfectly awesome time without it, but this is just like a little cherry on top, and so I think that's definitely like, especially Berlin being such a party city, lots of drugs, lots of things, that I feel like the people could definitely cultivate a larger awareness around, because oftentimes we just get so caught up in the party, caught up in what our friends are doing or whatever, is that we don't check in with ourselves, like how are we feeling, or like why are we doing this, like why, you know. And so I feel like the more aware that you can be of why you're doing anything, you know, whether it's drugs or not, can definitely help you to live a more authentic and fulfilled life, and where you're taking care of all aspects of your body and not just being like, you know, F you body, we're gonna destroy you now so I could have fun or whatever. Like you could totally have lots of fun without doing any of these things to you, you know. So it's yeah, just differentiating when things are abuse and use, and really just tapping into, do I really need this right now? And if I do, what function is it serving me? And how is it serving me? Is it serving me? You know, to just really cultivate this awareness of like why you do when you do it is important for anything you do. So
yeah. Do you feel like there's a change happening? Do you think that feel like people waking up? Do you think that in parties, I mean, just the fact that you massage at parties and people wanna get your massage at parties shows that there are some people already who like it, no? Do you feel like there's an increase in sensibility of the not the abuse, but the use of psychedelics or drugs for the right reasons?
I believe so. I would like to think that the earth as a whole is kind of expediting this process into, you know, like its own evolution of consciousness, in that, you know, just kind of people who haven't known in the past are starting to know, or things like meditation or yoga or healing festivals are kind of becoming more out into the open. And so I do believe that there is this shift, and I think it's really cool coming from a place like San Francisco, which is such this mecca of like healing and psychedelics and Burning Man and everything, to come to a city like Berlin where, you know, it's very like party city and whatnot, but to also be seeing things like cacao ceremony, like conscious rave, or, you know, just things other than this like party, you know, drugged out atmosphere. But yeah, you know, everybody in their own process, and everybody, so it evolves in different speeds, really. And I guess for me, from what I see and the perspective that I see it, like, yeah, it's definitely evolving and evolving quickly, but that's also the types of people and environment that I surround myself with, you know. And for me to be massaging at a party, it's really important that it's a party that I personally would want to be at. Like, I would never massage at a party where I don't like the people or I don't like the music. And so to me, that's generally going to be a bit more of a conscious exploratory crowd, you know. Whereas, I don't know, I don't know, I can't think of a party off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's parties in Berlin that I wouldn't really want to be at, or that I wouldn't really connect with the people. Not saying that those people don't deserve to have massage or, you know, whatever. It's just that there's just this level of disconnect, you know. And it's interesting because there are definitely like certain parties, like for sure the people are like, yeah, this is awesome. Like I always massage at Pantere, which is like a monthly Psy party at Booked, and that it's a very like psychedelic crowd and people. So when they see me, they're like, "Wow, cool, that's awesome." Whereas like, you know, sometime like I remember I was massaging at like a New Year's party, and it wasn't as like a Psy crowd, and you know, people were kind of more surprised than like judgmental, but they're like, "Oh wow, massage, cool! I've never seen that," you know. So it's really cool to be able to open people's minds and shifts people's perspectives. But it's generally like a crowd who is leaning towards like, oh, this is cool / normal, you know, versus like, what is this? Why is this girl here? You know, like I don't think I'd massage at a party like that. So it's important for me to be discerning of what type of environment that I'm in.
Yeah. Talking about environment, you mentioned San Francisco.
Yeah.
I've never been to San Francisco, and there's so much you hear about it. Like, how is San Francisco different from Berlin? Tell me about San Francisco. Bring me there with my thoughts.
Well, San Francisco It was like it's like Berlin in a way, in that it's a city that can just move you. And I was born in Chicago. I went to university in Chicago and did a internship at San Francisco Magazine. And just having been there in a T-shirt in January, I was like, wow, I need to move here. So in 2008, I went back to school to graduate, and then the economy collapsed. So I was like, okay. I studied journalism and political science. I was like, okay, I could be a journalist, like unemployed in Chicago or San Francisco. So I just packed 2 bags and moved to San Francisco one day. Same thing with Berlin. I visited for 5 days and was like, wow, this city is amazing. I just need to move here. And then I went back to San Francisco, quit all my things, and then just moved here. And so it's really just like the vibe that grabs you somehow. It's just the nature of the people. And for San Francisco, it's also just not saying Berlin is not beautiful, but San Francisco is very beautiful in that there's the bay, there's the mountains across the bay. The architecture is amazing, and yeah, it's I mean, it's definitely changed since when I got there, and but everything is always changing. But back in 2008 when I arrived, that was a time I could just arrive with 2 bags and, be like, oh, let's see what happens without a bag. Whereas now, financially, that would be nearly impossible to do, because it could cost like $3,000 a month to live in a studio by yourself in San Francisco. But that's because a lot of like the tech influences and tech people have gone there. But when I first arrived in 2008, it was just magical, and like the Burning Man community is really large there, and they would just have like these gatherings, and just everybody's like Reiki master, ninja, yogi person, everything. And so like everything you could possibly ever want to try, like so much of my healing journey was there. I'm so grateful my bicycle accident was there, because I was getting like community acupuncture every day, or every week, where you would like sit in a room with people, and it was only like $20 to do acupuncture with other people, and you could do Reiki workshops and just learn all these things. And so I think really just the magic of being near the ocean and being near the mountains, and being around this community. I mean, Burning Man started in the 90s, so you get these like super old school hippies, which are super like so awesome to connect with and just learn their wisdom. And and also like the hippie movement was so largely there. Like that was my old neighborhood, Haight-Ashbury. Like the Grateful Dead used to live there, Janis Joplin, like all those guys would hang out there and do concerts at Golden Gate Park. So I think that there's this just rich history of hippiedom and progressiveness, and just being able to be and let be, which really struck me. But it's also what really struck me about Berlin. Like for me, one of, I would say, the most important aspect of living is just freedom, like freedom to be and let be, and not have anyone bother you for like who you are, or how you dress, or what you say, and I feel like as long as you're not harming anyone, just like live in peace with one another, and so that really just came through to me when I first visited San Francisco and also Berlin. And so so then why would I ever leave a place like San Francisco? I think just for having lived there for 8 years, it really just served me, and I'm so grateful to have been there. But I was just ready to try something new, and every time I move, it's always like, well, I can always go back if I don't like it. But it's, I did that with San Francisco, and 8 years later, I was like, wow, that was amazing. And Berlin, I've been here for 3 years, and it's still been amazing. And so, I like to kind of test the waters outside my comfort zones, because I feel like that's the space for growth. Like you don't grow when you're comfortable. And I've never lived abroad. I've never, lived in a country with another language, none of that. So I just wanted to challenge myself, and also listen to this heart calling. Like everything in my body was just telling me to move to Berlin. And I said, okay, I just got to do it. And I'm really happy that I did, and I'm really grateful that I did. And just since how it's been flowing for me, it just feels like it was I don't want to say like the right decision, but it was a fruitful decision, I guess, for my life. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Nice.
Thank
I
you.
love that you answered, that you gave yourself the question why you moved to San Francisco. Just gonna finish. Yeah, I think I would like to go to San Francisco.
It's beautiful. It's so amazing. Yeah. And the weather is just, it could be January, May, or November, and it just looks the same. Yeah. Well, it's not always warm like LA. LA's always warm. Like it could be a bit rainy and stuff in December. But I would say it's the perfect bike riding weather. Like it's never too hot, never too cold. And if you just have like a light jacket at night, you're good. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also makes sense to be at a place where you can really learn whatever you need to learn, in your case Reiki and stuff, but then you need to go and spread it with the world.
Yeah.
If you would only ever stay in San Francisco, the gift of Reiki would stay in San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Totally.
So now I would like to ask you the question that my friend had for you.
Okay.
And it has something to do with corporate environment and microdosing.
Okay.
And I would like to know your opinion about that. So in San Francisco, in the Silicon Valley tech startup world, is it super separated from the hippy dippy world there, or is it all like interconnected? That's the base of the question, but I'll continue. And then, the question is, I think many people are using microdosing of LSD to like work or to get more creative. And my friend had the question if you have a suggestion how it could be incorporated in the corporate environment in Europe. And my question on top of that is, do you think that even makes sense, or would that be more like abusing LSD for working harder, working more, being more productive and self-optimizing?
Okay. So to answer your first question, I would say between the hippies and the tech, it's really... there are definitely hippie tech people and tech hippie people, I'm sure. In places like Burning Man, you'll definitely find the two. I would say there might be a bit of friction because the tech people are pushing out the hippie people because the hippie people can't afford the tech rents anymore. So I guess it really depends like how you look at it, because both are going to exist, but there may be some strong feelings towards one or the other from groups, or not. They could also be living peacefully. Like every moment and every person is the same, I guess. But I would say maybe there are less hippies in San Francisco now because it's just harder to live there. And then your second question was microdosing, and like
if how and if it could be incorporated in let's imagine we are marketing managers at a big corporation and we have a brainstorming meeting on the new project,
and then we all drop a little LSD.
What do you think about it?
Well, I don't think institutionalized drug taking is ever a great idea. Is ever a great idea. And I don't know, I've actually never tried microdosing. It just hasn't been a priority for me. I definitely understand, it can access different parts of your brain. It can help you be more focused. It can help you be more creative, things like that. But I would say that if you wanted to experiment with it, it should... I don't like the word should, but it may behoove you for it to be a more personal exploration than something that you're doing because your whole team is doing it or your manager tells you to do it. In a similar vein, microdosing to meditation, I would say the consensus is meditation is a great thing and it can help you focus, it can help you be more creative. But for some people, it just doesn't resonate with them at all, So to force them to do meditation would actually be, pretty harmful for them because they really they have such an aversion to it, So I think it really depends on the person and... I think it's worth the exploration, worth a shot if you're up for it. I would say that I primarily relate to my environment experientially, so I'll try most things once. Most things, but not all things. And so if you feel like, oh, maybe this could be a good idea and you want to try it and it somehow benefits you, then to keep doing it. But I think to have some sort of like structural aspect of you must do this or you need to do this or this is good for you so you should is never really beneficial for people, because we're all very different, and it's of course also set and setting, and that every moment and every person is just different. And so you can't do like a blanket, like a blanket therapy for people and expect it to work for everybody the same. And also, I feel like we already live in such a hyper productive society anyway, that if the intention is to be more productive, you're kind of, getting away from the aspect of just like, I don't know how, like what psychedelics could be for you, like I feel like you're kind of missing the point if you're only looking at it to be like, yeah, I'm going to be more productive. It's just like, well, there are many other beautiful aspects, that could be. And again, it's just it's just moving away from this very like linear point A to point B mentality, and that nothing is actually linear. We just perceive it to be. And so the more you can take like an exploratory, playful approach and doing things because you feel called to, not because everyone else is doing it or your manager tells you so, then it could be a possibly fruitful exploration, but also not, and that's okay too. Like I would definitely not recommend that microdosing is for everybody, because it's not for everybody. Like I haven't even been called to it yet, but maybe one day I will do it. So just whenever people feel like it's the right moment, or if it's something that they would like to explore, then they could if they want to. But definitely not feel like pressure or forced to be able to do so, which is just like a very important rule of thumb with any psychedelic substance. Like, don't do it just because everybody else is doing it, or you feel pressure, then, difficult happenings can occur.
When else should people not do it?
I think it's really just checking in with yourself, and I would say that it's really important to just be in just like a clear and calm mind space, if you're kind of in this space where you're having terrible dreams, or you have anxiety, or you just got in a fight with your mom, or someone passed away, and you're kind of dealing with like heavy emotional or psychological things, I would say that psychedelics could definitely like open the door for some challenging experiences. So I would just say, when you feel like just calm and grounded and just connected with yourself, and really just asking yourself, like, can this be a fruitful exploration? I think that's really important. Just being honest with yourself, authentic, and but if there's something just kind of like lingering in your psyche, that's just never a really great time to do it, because you could just open Pandora's box of who knows what. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to share it now. I think for me, that was also the reason why I was always so afraid of it. Like, people around me, I don't know, I got offered if I wanted to try LSD or mushrooms, but I was afraid. Something inside of me just didn't want to. I felt that there were like parts of my soul, corners of my psyche, where I wasn't ready to look at, where I didn't want to see. And I think I like, when I go to the ocean, I take my time. I go very slow. And I think that's also how I explore my mind and myself. That I started meditating, and this, I think if I would have taken LSD or some kind of psychedelic in the last few years somewhere, where I feel I didn't want to, I'm not saying that the experience would not have been a good learning, but it would have come rougher than I wanted to, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And so much of that is you tapping into your intuition, you know, and like that's really just the best thing you can do for yourself is to just really listen to that voice within you of just like, okay, is this the right moment? And if the answer is no, like that you should definitely honor that, you know. So that's really great that you did, because oftentimes it's not the right moment for you to explore, you know, certain aspects, and sometimes it'll never be the right moment, and that's totally okay too, you know. And it's really just meeting yourself where you're at and listening to the voice within you is really just the best practice regarding anything in life, really. Being true to yourself.
And now I would like to share with you my experience during Vipassana meditation I did in 2017, because I never took any psychedelics, but of course I asked people, how is it? Can you explain me? Like, because I thought that then maybe my fear would go away, but of course, like, if I don't experience it, I don't experience it by someone telling me, but people always told me, yeah, I mean, you see the colors more vibrant and your senses, you can hear different things and stuff. And then I went to the Vipassana meditation, and I think just with meditation I gained an altered state of consciousness.
Absolutely.
And because, I mean, you sit there in the dark room for 10 hours every day and you just focus. There's no noise, no colors, no input, no smell, just focus. And after the first, I think on the second day it was, I went outside, because during the meditation sessions you can go for walks in the nature. And so I walked around and there was a snail, and I looked at the snail and I could hear the snail chewing a leaf. No way! And I stood there and I thought, that's awesome! Seriously, I can hear that! And then I could also hear the leaves different. The different leaves sounded different in the wind.
Wow, beautiful.
And and then it hit me, and I was like, I think that's what people have when they take LSD.
Totally.
But when I had this, I was not scared at all, because I did not take anything, or I did not feel
right.
Or it was just explorational. I was super interested. It was I was like, wow, that's amazing.
That's really cool. I mean, and that's also kind of why I call it psychedelic Reiki massage, is that it's pointing to this idea that you don't actually have to ingest any substances for your experience to be psychedelic. And that's such a beautiful example of how meditation made your experience somehow very psychedelic, you know. In a similar vein, like tantra or holotropic breathing, you're not ingesting any substances, but you're in a completely altered state of consciousness, you know. And so that's really beautiful that you experienced that.
So nice.
And I would say that could be even more powerful than actually ingesting.
Yeah,
you know?
that would have been my question now. Do you think the tool you use to that altered state of consciousness changes something? You think it's a difference if you do it alone or with a substance?
Yeah, I definitely think the nature of it, for sure, because it's kind of like what you say, you know, when you take substances, you can feel a little like, or, you know, just kind of like in a totally different realm. So yeah, I would say that I don't know, I guess it really depends on where you're at and what you're going for. Again, you know, is that, you know, if you feel like ingesting a substance can kind of open other things, that, you know, doing something where you're not ingesting substance can be more like grounding or connected for you in a way. Yeah, I guess it just really, I don't think anything is better or worse or more fruitful or less fruitful. It's just kind of how it resonates with you in that moment, and also the intentionality of what you're doing, like what you are hoping to get, what you intend to get out of the experience, or kind of like with what intention you're walking into the experience as well. But I think, like I think achieving psychedelic states without ingesting substances can be a really powerful practice, because there isn't this like extra variable of what you're relying on to be in that state. Yeah, I think it can be so meaningful to be hearing a snail chewing, after meditation. Like, wow, because it really just kind of like slows down the world in a way, like.
It makes you realize how wonderful, how full of wonders, everything is.
Totally, absolutely. Absolutely, because then there's also this aspect of sometimes when you ingest psychedelic substances, people have difficulty remembering or just really, things like that. Whereas I feel like you can definitely be a bit more present when things are not ingested. But then it just really depends on the person. Some people have a capability to be really present, Because also like ingesting, like LSD, and you don't want to feel like woo, like okay, then you can just have like a little microdose and see how that influences your interaction with your environment. But yeah, I guess it just really depends on where you're at and what you're intending. So yeah.
I think towards the end we have to clarify one thing.
Okay.
That psychedelic Reiki massage does not mean that you are on psychedelics or the person is on psychedelic. It just means that you can come into altered states of consciousness, and these states of consciousness are supporting for very holistic healing. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's definitely one aspect of it. It's because once you start to enter the energetic realms, because I combine the energy of Reiki and also the physicality of massage, but once you start to enter the energetic realms, things can start to feel a little like woo, like in an altered state. That's definitely the main aspect of it. And then another aspect is that psychedelics as a tool for the past 19 years of my life have largely influenced my style and also my lifestyle too, and it's taught me really valuable learnings like being present in the moment, compassion, empathy, non-judgment, going with the flow, trusting your intuition, and these are all aspects that I incorporate into the style of massage that I do. So yeah.
So, and now kind of a fun question for the end. Would you like to share your most fruitful experience?
My fruitful psychedelic experience.
Yeah, can you take me there? I'm gonna close my eyes and then I'm gonna be in Burning Man with you in the orgy tent.
How did you know? No, just kidding. I would definitely say my most fruitful experience was when I was called to Peru in 2013 to sit with ayahuasca for 4 ceremonies over 8 days. And that was really powerful because I was being called there. Like I would be dreaming of this space, and there was just all these synchronicities with like numbers and mini earthquakes and Pachamama. And then like I arrive at where I'm at and I'm like, oh, this was all in my dream. So that just like really felt like, okay, I'm where I need to be, But that was really beautiful because it ended up only being 3 people. And, ayahuasca tourism is really big these days. Like everybody's going to Peru to do ayahuasca or whatever. But the people that I found to sit with, they were of the Shipibo tribe. And this one man, the gringo, like the one guy from the States, came and in like the 90s, and they were doing ayahuasca ceremonies since then. So I had like a really good feeling of just their intention. Like it felt really real, and it wasn't just to capitalize off, Westerners and things. And so it ended up only being 3 of us, and it was really cool because we were able to like make the ayahuasca with them and put in our intentions into the brew. And for me, that was like the most healing and psychedelic experience because I came to address just kind of things within my family and just with my parental and just kind of even like generational things, like holdings that I had, especially with my parents. And I don't know. I was taught by the shamans that when you sit with ayahuasca, it's best to do it like 3 or 4 times if that's available to you over the course of like 8 to 10 days, because each ceremony is different and it kind of like unfolds in a different way. And so, like, 2 of the ceremonies were like, they called it like a white knuckle sleigh ride where you're like, oh, you know, you're just like sweating and crying and vomiting and like really intense. And then the other 2 were like very subtle, you know, and you could, you know, if you didn't have like you could just dismiss it as like, oh, nothing happened, but like very subtly things shifted and happened. But that was very psychedelic because it just totally like, whoa, it just took me out of this world, and I was seeing like the Icaros patterns, and I saw like the vines of Mother Ayahuasca, and her face came out to me, and I was like, well, I'm definitely like tripping, you know. But it was also deeply healing because it just really helped me to cultivate compassion for my parents, essentially. So long story short, my parents were immigrants from Korea, and they, you know, like Asian families, it's kind of like tough love, you know, and oftentimes they weren't there because when I was a kid, but it's because they were working so that I could have a roof over my head and go to school and all of that. But I think growing up, I had a hard time understanding their version of love and like what love is to them versus like for me, you know, I want to be like cuddled and said I love you, and you know, whereas for them love was like, oh, we're supporting you, we're doing all of this because we love you. And so I held like a deep resentment towards my parents. I was just like, okay, why would you even be parents if like this is how you're gonna treat me and just like not be there or whatever. But then it was through ayahuasca, like it was kind of like the Scrooge story, like the Christmas story where he's watching himself and just different episodes. And I saw different episodes of like me not even being born. And like it was my sister, my mom, and my dad. And there were just these really like traumatic things happening. And I was watching them and finally being like, whoa, you guys had it so hard. Like, how did you even, my mom had my sister when she was 28. Like, how did you even do all of this, you know? And from that point on, I was able to understand like, wow, you guys were really just doing the best that you can. And I have so much compassion for and gratefulness. You know, I'm so grateful that me and my sister were like educated and healthy and living our dreams and whatever. And so that was a huge shift in just everything, because I just held this resentment for so long. And I was really grateful for ayahuasca to be able to like show me these things and shift that energy into one of just compassion and gratitude. And yeah, like nothing else has been that like mind-blowing or healing for me. But that was also just a very intense experience that set the bar really high of like the potential for what could unfold in those moments. So I'm really grateful for that.
Nice.
Thank you.
For sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask you more about ayahuasca because I think that's maybe a topic for another
whole other podcast, just ayahuasca.
Yeah. What I can offer you towards the end is that I'm definitely gonna put the link to your Facebook website.
Thank you.
In the show notes.
Awesome.
So if someone is interested, they can book a massage with you or just like you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah, is there something else you would like to say?
No, well, thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure, and yeah, it just felt really natural talking to you and really good questions and things.
Oh,
and
thank you too. I loved all your answers.
Oh, thank you. We'll see when we listen to them. No, just kidding. No, that was really great fun, and I'm really happy to share. And I'm really grateful for the space. So thank you.
You're right.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thank you for listening until here. I hope you enjoyed this episode and your support is really appreciated. You can support me by sharing this episode with people you love and people who think could benefit from what Nina has to share. You can support Nina by contacting her, sending her your love, or booking a massage appointment, of course.